I remember being young, broke, and absolutely enchanted by a purple box. The basic set, the one with Keep on the Borderlands inside. I must have read those stapled pages 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. The rules, the art, the strange little tables. They were magical. And honestly, they're the reason I started reading seriously at all. We played Keep on the Borderlands, of course. Or maybe we finished it? I honestly can't remember. What I do remember is standing in the hobby shop staring at modules we couldn't afford. Dragons, wizards, impossible ruins, each one promising adventure. But here's the thing, those modules weren't just adventures, they were doors. Every cover had a level range printed on it. For characters levels 1 to 3, for levels 6 to 9. To us, those weren't balanced guidelines. They were thresholds, gates, so to speak. A quiet promise that one day, if our characters survived long enough, we might be worthy of stepping through that door. The monster manual felt like a bestiary stolen from a forbidden library. The Dungeon Master's Guide was a brick of arcane wisdom. I'm not sure I ever truly read or understood it all at the time. And the cosmology. That's when names like Asmodeus entered into our vocabulary. We were still broke kids, but our imaginations had leveled up. We weren't dreaming about modules anymore. We were dreaming about worlds. And in the glorious foolishness of youth, we imagined confronting Asmodeus himself, surrounded by our own harem of succubi. Yeah, ambition and foolishness were never our problem. And then came Greyhawk, that big sprawling map on my wall, like a treasure map. It was revolutionary, not because it told a story, but because it didn't. It was a place without a plot, a world without a script, just names, borders, rumors, and possibilities, and population densities, which was really interesting. And for the first time, modules had someplace to go, and you could point to a hex and say, hey, that's where this adventure lives. Greyhawk wasn't a campaign. It was a sandbox before we had that word. A world that said, do whatever you want, just make it yours. When we finally could afford modules, we didn't treat them as sacred scripts. We treated them like treasure chests. We ripped out the best rooms, the best monsters, the best ideas, and dropped them into our own homemade campaigns. The rest, we ignored. This wasn't disrespect. It was the culture of the times. Modules were meant to be mined and not obeyed. Souvenirs of possibility, not exact implicit instructions. Sure, there were purists who insisted on running everything as written, but among our friends and their friends and so on, there was a quiet agreement that anything was fair game. Even within a single module, we kept the maps and the core idea, and filled the rooms with whatever we wanted, and we never felt guilty about changing things. It was expected, encouraged, and even celebrated. And honestly, half the time we didn't understand everything written anyway. Like, some modules read like textbooks. Some encounters weren't even solvable. And modern modules have better writing, in my honest opinion. But I digress. And here's the part that often surprises people today. Modules weren't incomplete because TSR forgot something. They were incomplete because the game assumed you were already building your own world. If modules were meant to be full stories, why publish entire books full of monsters, treasures, and ideas? The monster manual existed because the default assumption was that you would create your own adventures. Modules were never meant to be these self-contained narratives. They were frameworks, ingredients, and starting points. You were expected to fill in the gaps, fix the broken parts, and make the adventure your own. Looking back, it shouldn't surprise us. Many early module writers were paid a little more than free Cheetos and Coca-Cola, with vague promises of future glory. Their priorities weren't the same as today's. Maybe we've simply evolved into a world where narrative mistakes are no longer allowed? I don't know. Anyway, tournament modules made this even clearer. They weren't sprawling campaigns, they were tight, focused one-shots. Clear scoring, time limits, designed for single sittings. The big modules we drooled over weren't campaigns, but they weren't stories either. They were toolkits, possibilities, aspirations, and we respected them. Tomb of Horrors? Nope. We weren't bringing our beloved characters anywhere near that death trap. Modules had reputations, and we treated them accordingly. They were very dangerous doors. The allure of the mega dungeon beckoned us, but in all honesty, there wasn't such cohesiveness to them at the time. Still, they were pretty tempting, and just knowing they existed inspired us to dream bigger. My thoughts on the mega dungeons can be found on the link, I think this way or this way. Then high school arrived, and with it, Dragonlance. Now suddenly modules weren't doors anymore. They were hallways, a unified world, a unified story, a sense that you were stepping into someone else's narrative. It was intoxicating, but different. The modular dream gave way to the authored arc. And here's why I didn't understand until much later. Dragonlance didn't just give us a story, it quietly told us to follow one. It laid down tracks in the fresh snow, and most of us, myself included, stepped into them. It was easier. It required less imagination, less resistance, less of that raw, youthful audacity that we had to make our own world. The campaign moved from the background of our minds to the foreground of the module. Maybe it was age. Maybe I was simply at the stage where following felt easier than creating. But still, following was the theme of the time, and by then, I was starting to lose interest. Looking back now, I see why the OSR resonates with so many people. It isn't nostalgia for the Theiko or descending AC. It's the nostalgia for that mental state, that sense that modules were doors, not hallways. That the campaign lived in your head and not in someone's hardcover. That the world was yours to sketch, to create, not someone else's to follow. OSR modules today, the zines, the pamphlets, the one-page dungeons, they're trying to bring that feeling back. Not the rules, but the freedom. They're trying to bring back those doors that we want to go through.